What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. My stepdad tried to kill me when I was little. Trigger warning for domestic violence and language. My stepdad was a grade A asshole. He was in my life from the beginning, after my bio dad up and left, till I was about 13 to 14. He was an abusive, alcoholic, jobless dickwad who constantly physically and verbally abused both my mom and I. On multiple occasions, either my mom or I called the cops and watched them drag the sorry sack of shit out the house and throw him in jail for a couple of days. They were, sadly, the happiest days of my childhood. When I was little, I can remember countless times where I had gotten into physical fights with the man, resulting in black eyes, cuts, bruises, the works. I won't go into detail any further, since it's kinda hard to talk about, but I will say this. I never told anyone about this. This is the first time I've gotten it down in writing or out in the open at all. When I was little, 5 to 6 years old I'd say, I lived with my mom and stepdad in my stepdad's parents' attic. My mom frequently went out during the day for work and didn't come home till late evening or night. Well, one day, after my parents had a pretty hostile argument, my mom left for work and my dad was pretty pent up. This is what I remember, and continue to remember almost every day since the event. My dad took one of those large, heavy-duty trash bags out of his parents' kitchen, dragged me into the living room of the attic, stuffed me in the bag, and tied it after letting out some air. I remember being terrified, too scared to act out of fear of getting hit or yelled at. I waited till I heard him close the attic door, then proceeded to use my fingers to claw a hole through the trash bag. I remember it taking a while, since I wasn't that strong at the time due to malnourishment and, well, my age, but I eventually made it out and laid on the floor just waiting for my mom to get home. I don't know if she knows what happened, if she just thought I was playing with a trash bag or what, but that's what I remember, and I've been carrying it for years. Thankfully, she eventually left that dirt bag, and I can now happily say I have an amazing father who I love very much, so this story does have a happy ending. Thanks for reading my little vent. I'm kinda terrified to post this, but I know getting it out finally will do me some good. Last Christmas I learned my sister and I don't have the same father and are technically half-sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now, but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mom to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s. Then she met my father and they started dating, and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister and I'm keeping it that way, and if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap I just tell them it's a long story. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the F out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left it there. Not proud. I found my adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mom, I just never had a relationship with her. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me. I just knew that one day I ended up living with her after telling her, "One day I don't want to go back home, LOL." I also found the letter that my mom wrote as to why she was giving me up. That one really hurt. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan during the Korean War, while in the Marines. He hooked up with a woman there, and she got pregnant. So, I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins in Japan whom I've never met before. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day, and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. My cousin alerted me when I was a kid, and to this day, I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. In middle school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later, and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, and methamphetamine. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I Googled his full name. It freaked me out at first, but I've kinda gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40 plus years ago. He will retire soon, and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. This first part isn't exactly dark, but when I was a kid around 9 or so, my cousin, who was 12 at the time, would make out with me. I didn't really know better at that age, but thought I'd be in trouble if I talked about it. For whatever reason, about 6 years went by before I saw him again, and it was never brought up. Never mentioned. He was like a totally different person. I sometimes wonder if it even happened. My memory isn't very reliable, and it was so long ago now. I'm in my 20s. Fast forward a little bit more, and I found out he died a couple years ago while cleaning a gun. Accidentally shot himself. My great aunt, who's his grandma and who basically raised him, believes wholeheartedly that it was an accident. But I suspect it wasn't. He grew up around guns and knowing how they work and how to empty them and everything. I find the odds that he accidentally forgot to empty the chamber pretty low. I also know he was struggling with depression and brain damage from a car accident a year prior. But I won't tell my aunt any of this. I think it would break her heart. I witnessed my fiance's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My coworkers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how effed up I am. My wife is handicapped, and I lied to her that I find it hard to clean/cut up mushrooms. She has self-esteem issues because I can do things much easily than her. So I lied, and now she feels better. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity. At age 5, my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed, and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for a few years, and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing or if they still are doing the thing. That I didn't graduate from college. I failed one course my senior year, second semester. The ceremony was already set up, so they let everyone walk. I had no diploma in my award, nobody knows to this day, and it's been 17 years. Failed one course, 3 credits. Was ashamed, so I never went back for those 3 credits. So everyone believes I graduated. My grandma was in a car accident and broke her ankle, so she stayed at my house and my mom/we took care of her while she recovered. I was entering puberty at the time and discovered that you could order corn on cable and was like a madman ordering corn. The bill that month came out to $500. My mom thought it was my grandma because her novellas were on like channel 50 to 60 and the corn was $500 to $600. I've literally never told anyone to this day. My uncle owned an old Camaro that collected dust in his garage. When I was around 10, my family and I were in town visiting, and I wrote the word F in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb so that the letters were fatter than my normal index finger. A few hours later, my aunt/uncle asked us who did it, and I proved it wasn't me by showing how the person who did it had bigger fingers than me. Taking that shit to my grave. Funny, lighthearted story from my childhood. My little brother was in the shower. I could hear him singing. I put a coat on backwards and a stocking cap pulled over my face and waited outside the bathroom door. He opened the door, still singing and dancing kinda, and I did the Frankenstein thing. Arms out, moaning He screamed and fell backwards, knocking the toilet completely over. Water went everywhere. The top of the toilet tank broke, shower curtain ripped down, and him lying on the floor in the middle of all this. I ran back down the hall, coat and hat off, and sauntered back casually. By then my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone is like, what the hell? I've heard him tell this story as proof of the existence of ghosts. To this day, little feller is now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 kids. He believes in ghosts. I don't feel a bit bad. Pest control technician here. You're paying too much for pest control. Whoever you hired, unless it's a fairly small company, they are ripping you off. Unless you have cockroaches or bedbugs, YouTube it. Times are hard enough right now. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Also check out our other videos and have an amazing day.